Hello, everyone. My name is Beth Wofford, and I am here to present on the request for applications for the Pitch UA4 process. Thank you for listening to this recording, and I hope this answers some of the questions you may have about the request for applications. Today, we are going to be going over quite a few things, so I appreciate your patience as we go through them. We'll start out learning a bit more about Pitch UA and the fourth iteration of this contest. We'll go over the key dates as well as the eligibility criteria. This means who can and cannot apply. I'll tell you a bit about the grant award details, including timelines and estimated values. And then I will walk you through the various phases of this application process. Pitch UA4, as you know, if you attended our opening event on December 16th, is a multi-phased pitching process for interested applicants to develop and refine social impact content. This has been going on since 2019 and was started with one of our sister projects, the USAID Office of Transition Initiatives, Ukraine Confidence Building Initiative 2. This is the fourth iteration, and we have two themes, that concepts must address this year. The first one is Media Matters, and the second one is Visible Transformations. We had a lot more about this in the opening event, which will also be recorded. One thing to note, Pitch UA is managed by the USAID Transformation Communications Activity. And I wanted to thank Media Resources Management, our logistic and administrative and operational partner for all things Pitch UA. They were able to pull off the kickoff event very quickly and will be responsible for maintaining this presentation and the website where you can learn more about the Pitch UA4 process. Now, here are some key dates. I want everyone to make sure you pay attention here. The first dates are set in stone. The request for applications, which is the main document that you should use for all purposes for this application process, was released on December 10. We had the opening event on December 16th, and we are asking for everyone to submit their concept papers online on January 10th. You will note that the rest of the dates are tentative. All dates are determined based upon current priorities for TCA, USAID priorities, funding availability, and other such timelines. So I'd like to reiterate that these are tentative and are subject to change. Should they change, we will issue an amendment to the request for applications and also post this information on the Pitch UA website. That being said, we are looking forward to announcing our shortlisted concepts, those who have made it past the first round at the end of January. We will have pitching and doctoring sessions, which I will talk more about shortly, for these shortlisted concepts in mid-February. Full applications will be due in early March, and we look to announce the finalists in late March. Finally, these finalists will have an opportunity to do a final pitching event, which is their final opportunity to show us what they got, and then we will announce the winners in late April. One very, very important thing to note that I would like to reiterate for everyone is that the earliest start date for Pitch UA4 activities will likely be July 1, 2022. I want to say this because it does take significant time and effort on both our sides, TCA and the winning partners, to review grant agreements, ensure that all the implementation plans are in place, that the budgets look good. So just because we announce somebody as a winner at the end of April, that does not mean they receive the money the next day. That means that's the time that we start negotiating the grant agreement. So just to make sure everyone is very clear, the earliest you may begin work will likely be summer 2022. This is all dependent upon TCA priorities, funding availability, and negotiations with winners. Now, this is very important, so I want to take our time to go through the eligibility criteria. The first thing is organization types. We are accepting applications and concept papers from registered Ukrainian entities, including non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, both not-for-profit and for-profit, local content creators associated with organizations, and all that are within good standing with Ukrainian authorities and compliant with all appropriate regulations. In the request for applications document, we do have a list of the types of entities that are eligible to apply. These include limited liability companies, joint stock companies, business partnerships, cooperatives, profit and nonprofit institutions, representative offices or branch offices, and very important here, private entrepreneurs who can demonstrate that they have an organizational and staffing structure to carry out the proposed activities. Individuals are not eligible. So if you're a private entrepreneur and it's just you, unfortunately, we cannot accept your application. You must have an organization associated with your private entrepreneurship. The next item is regarding the number of concept papers we will accept. Applicants may only submit one application per theme per prime organization. This is very important because we understand that there are many organizations that are part of other organizations. So if you are part of a partnership, that partnership can only apply for one theme each time. So if you are a partnership and group of organizations, you can only submit 2 concept papers, one for theme 1 and one for theme 2. The next thing I want to talk about is the number of concept papers that could be submitted per prime organization. So we understand that there are organizations that work with other organizations. If you decide to do that, or you are owned by another organization, you can only submit one concept paper per theme. So if you are owned or ultimately managed by a holding company, group, individual, or other structure, that group of organizations may only submit one application per theme. This is because no more than one grant per theme will be awarded to a single organization or group of organizations under the same ownership. So very important, if you are part of a bigger organization, that big organization can only submit one concept paper per theme. Content types, we have lots of applicable content types. We're very excited to see what you come up with. This includes, we will accept scripted series, including animated series, non-scripted multi-episode programs like documentaries, reality shows, discussions, discovery type shows, YouTube programming, full-length movies, animated full-length movies, all are perfectly acceptable. We will not be awarding grants to short films, short one-off documentaries, podcasts, or radio programs. We're looking for visual content that can reach a wide audience. This is a key change from previous iterations of Pitch UA, is that all projects, all concepts that are submitted must be in the development stage and may not already be in production. Any production of the submitted projects may be planned no earlier than 3 months after the announcement of the winners. So if you are in the development stage and you're already working on your implementation plan, we should not see that you will be ready to start implementing until at least July or August 2022. This is to allow our applicants to engage with our experts and work as closely as possible to ensure that the programming has the adequate social impact content needed to reach the audiences we wish to reach. We are looking for organizations that can demonstrate successful past performance in implementing similar types of content creation. We are also looking for organizations that have sound financial management, that they have a system of internal controls, that they're able to safeguard assets and protect against fraud, waste, and abuse. And we will assess this capability by what is called a pre-award risk assessment. Anyone who has been involved in the Pitch UA process before, or just been involved with USAID grant making before, knows that we ask for a lot of paperwork, and we will be asking for that paperwork once we get to the finalist stage. We are also looking for applications, once applicants are selected, you will be required to sign certain required certifications prior to receiving the grant. These certifications will be provided to finalists. They are not required at this stage right now, but I just wanted to let you know that that will be part of the process. Further, if you are awarded a grant as a result of this request for applications, that is more than 25,000 US dollars equivalent in Ukrainian hryvnia, you'll be required to provide a data universal numbering system number or a universal entity identifier, I believe is the correct thing, a UEI or DUNS. We will be happy to assist you in getting those numbers as needed. All right, some additional eligibility criteria. For concept papers, I'll walk you through the full concept paper process now. We will not be asking for full budgets, but in the full application, we will. So I want to talk a little bit about ineligible expenses. So this is included in the RFA document as well. It is fully listed there. But as you are considering what you need to do to carry out your concept, you cannot budget for these things. Construction or infrastructure activities, no ceremonies, parties, celebrations. We cannot provide alcohol, purchases of restricted goods, prohibited goods. These are under USAID regulations. If you have questions, please do let us know what those include, but this is typically agricultural products, fertilizers, pesticides, medical equipment, all things that I really hope you won't need for content creation. One thing that is to be considered, though, is the U.S. government recently released, I guess, a requirement that we cannot pay for covered telecommunication and video surveillance equipment or services provided by a number of Chinese companies, including Huawei, ZTE, Hytera, Hangzhou, Hikvision Digital Technology Company, or Dahua, or any subsidiary or affiliate of these entities. And this includes phones, computers, and what is important for these activities, audiovisual equipment, monitors, microphones, audio mixers, cameras, speakers, any infrastructure or network equipment, software used to operate telecommunications equipment, cloud service providers, hosting providers, mobile phone service, landline service. All of these things cannot be provided by any of those companies listed. So as you are thinking through your budget and you're thinking through what you will need to complete your proposed activity, just keep that in mind that we are not able to pay for these items by these companies. We will not pay for anything that is sourced from any of the ineligible countries that are identified by USAID at this present moment. That includes Cuba, Iran, North Korea, and Syria. Please don't buy anything from those places. We will not pay for it. We will not pay for any prior obligations, fines or penalties, creation of endowments. We will not pay for indirect costs. And very important here, we will not reimburse you for any purchase or activity that has already been done. So when you are planning, know that we will only reimburse you once we have the signed grant agreement. We cannot, you cannot budget for things that have already been procured and purchased and paid for. And in general, we'll work together to create a budget together, and we'll approve the costs. So if there are any questions, you can reach out to us. There will be contact information at the end of this presentation. I also want to highlight content considerations. We are looking for social impact content, and we are looking forward to the many creative ideas everyone comes up with. But USAID and the US government will not fund certain types of content or depictions of sensitive subjects. This is a basic list. The full list is within the request for applications document. So please do review it. So hang in there. Content should not feature any drug use or excessive alcohol or tobacco use, and you should not glorify the use of these substances. If you would like to include alcohol or tobacco use, please just note that we will have to work with you closely with our experts to make sure it is depicted in a sensitive manner. Content should not include any vulgar language, including cursing and usage of swear words that can be offensive in any part of the country. Content, should not display characters, dialogues, or scenarios that reflect stereotypes or negative perceptions of any race, ethnicity, religion, or sexual orientation. But if the purpose of the program is to challenge these stereotypes, it should be handled in a delicate way, and we are happy to work with you to ensure that it is handled appropriately. Content should not feature excessive violence. We will not be able to fund content that is very violent. And content should not feature nudity or strong sexual situations. And content should not discuss issues of family planning or abortion. Okay, a couple other things regarding eligibility criteria. This is a very USAID thing. It's very long. We could even have another training on these, but all applicants who proceed to grant award will be required to review and understand the mandatory and required as applicable standard provisions. These are just the requirements that all grantees must adhere to in line with USAID policy. We will go over these with individuals and organizations that receive grant awards, but this information is linked both in English and in Ukrainian in the request for applications document. So I do highly recommend that you take a look just to know what you would be getting yourself into should you be awarded a grant. This next item is very important, is conflict of interest. According to the US government, employees have a conflict of interest when they are in a position that requires them to make objective decisions on behalf of the organization. And then they have personal or outside business interests, relationships, or obligations that might interfere with their judgment. In this situation, employees, meaning both employees of TCA, of Media Resources Management, our partner, and of applicants, should openly and ethically disclose and acknowledge the conflicting interests so we can take measures to mitigate and avoid any real or perceived conflict of interest. It is important to encourage your staff to thoroughly understand policies, procedures, and practices to proactively disclose of these relationships. Then take steps to ensure that there is no real or perceived conflict of interest. Some examples of conflict of interest could include maybe you need to procure equipment under your grants. A conflict of interest might look like recommending vendors that are related to you and not informing your organization leadership or TCA. It could look like an undisclosed close friendship with a vendor. Maybe if you need to hire additional staff to complete the activities under your proposed concept, a conflict of interest might look like hiring or supervising friends or relatives. So what we are asking is for all applicants to review and sign a letter. It is included as an annex to the request for applications that reiterate their commitment to disclosing conflicts of interest so we can work together with your organization to ensure that we mitigate potential conflicts of interest. So for instance, if your brother's organization is a potential vendor to your organization, we would work with your organization to ensure that you would actually not be involved in the selection process for that vendor. So it doesn't prevent you from working together. It just ensures that we have mitigation measures in place to ensure that there is no real or perceived conflict of interest. The message and theme requirements have been discussed, but I also just wanted to highlight a couple more that were mentioned under the content considerations, just kind of expand upon that a little bit too. We ask that you don't promote an organization or company. This kind of is in line with that conflict of interest. If an organization or company will be included, we ask you to highlight it for further discussion so we can discuss during the pitching and doctoring phase. The tone of your concepts, they should not be negative or divisive. We're looking for solutions to challenges, not just highlighting or reinforcing problems. And then last two to keep in mind, also kind of related to conflict of interest and these type of things. Content should not demonstrate a preference for a particular religion or religious interpretation over another. If content does feature religious activities or activities involving religious holidays, please highlight this so we can work together with the pitching and doctoring stage to ensure that everything looks good. Remember, once again, we want to ensure that we are displaying everything in a positive light and that we are being sensitive to stereotypes and things like that. And finally, content may not promote or support one political party over another. So try to keep politics out of it as much as possible. Okay, those are a lot of the rules. Those are a lot of the not so fun things. So thanks for hanging in there. Now let's talk about the grant awards. TCA anticipates awarding up to 26,700,000 Ukrainian hryvnia for all grants awarded under Pitch UA4. We are anticipating 6 to 8 awards total, and we're hoping to spread those awards throughout the themes. So 3 to 4 awards per theme. Each grant award will not exceed 4,005,000 hryvnia, and it's anticipated that grants will range between 1.3 million and 4 million hryvnia. Now, please don't just budget up to 4 million hryvnia because you want to get 4 million hryvnia. Grant values must be based on grant activities and negotiations with TCA. The final amount may be lower or higher than that range, but don't draft a budget just to get to the ceiling. We can tell, and it demonstrates that you haven't put thought into the actual implementation needs for your activity. We anticipate grants to be about 1 year in duration. This can be slightly more, slightly less, but we're shooting for around 12 months for the duration. As mentioned previously, each grant will start no earlier than July 1, 2022. So once again, you may be announced a winner in late April, but you should not plan for activities to begin before July. Activities may only begin once you have a fully executed grant agreement. Start dates are subject to change based on the number of grant awards, grant implementation timelines, and TCA priorities. We also want to ensure that applicants can demonstrate that their projects will be aired, released online, released in theaters, basically getting to the target audience before June 30, 2025. This is the end date of the TCA project. We want to be able to demonstrate to USAID how your amazing concept have reached so many people. And I want to once again reiterate that no more than one grant will be awarded to a single organization or group of organizations under the same ownership or management structure. All right, so this is the grant application procedures. We will talk through each phase of the process. We'll of course focus on the concept phase, since that is the phase we are in now, and I will briefly go over the final 2 phases. The first phase is the initial concept. During this phase, you're learning more about the key themes and concepts, as well as the rules, why you're here right now looking at this presentation. We want to raise awareness, and we want to achieve the maximum possible quantity for quality entries. The concept paper requirements, we ask that you submit both in English and Ukrainian to allow our international experts to also review your concepts. In addition to the concept paper, applicants should submit a number of additional attachments. This isn't too many, we hope. You will be asked to submit more documentation later, but at this early stage, we ask first for a copy of your legal entity charter or the extract from the Unified State Register of Legal Entities. This is to ensure that you are eligible. Remember, once again, we are only accepting applications from Ukrainian entities and organizations. We are also asking for a document to specify your ownership structure, including any and all related or associated holding companies, groups, individuals, or other structures, including ultimate beneficiaries of these related organizations. Once again, this is related to eligibility criteria. We are only accepting one concept paper per theme from each group of companies. And then there is also a letter in Annex D. I mentioned this when we talked about conflict of interest, asserting that applicants have no existing conflicts of interest or existing affiliations with Media Resources Management or TCA and our staff. that might pose or create the perception of a conflict of interest. Please include these with your applications. All right, let's walk through the concept paper. These are available online. Please submit your application, your concept paper online, available at pitchua.com. I will walk through this with you so you can know why we're asking for these things and what we're looking for in your responses. Please ensure that you include the name of your company. As a reminder, individuals are not allowed to apply for USAID grant funding. So if you're a private entrepreneur, you should also demonstrate in the past performance section, which we will talk about later, that you have adequate organizational support to achieve your proposed concept. Then tell us who you are. How can we get in touch with you? We need the contact person's first name and last name, an email address, and a phone number. So this is for us to reach out to you if we have any questions, or to let you know one way or another how we decide to proceed with your concept. The next few questions will help us learn more about your concept. As a reminder, your organization or group of organizations, if your organization is owned by a separate entity, may only submit one concept paper per theme. So please choose which theme. It cannot straddle both themes. You can only apply for one theme at a time. Choose a title that helps us know what your project is about. And then the log line. What's your concept about? We want you to be able to demonstrate that it aligns with one of this year's themes. We want to know what's going to happen, who's it going to happen to, and what's involved. So this is the fun part. So the next thing we are looking for is the type of content. Once again, this helps us ensure that you meet the eligibility criteria. I went over these content that we will accept. You will see here an option for other. I would like to remind everyone once again that podcasts, radio shows, and short one-off documentaries are not acceptable content. So if you do apply for those, unfortunately, you will not be considered. So just want to reiterate, this question is for eligibility criteria. The next one is just for us to learn more about your concept. Please choose the genre that you are applying for. There is an option for other, so feel free to describe it if it is not included here. You can also choose more than one option. In here, this is about the timing. How long will this take? How many episodes if it's a multi-episode project? How long will each episode be? If it's just a film, a one-off piece of content, how long will it be in minutes? And then the total duration of content that will be produced under this grant. So these are, please only enter numbers. This will help us ensure that everything looks accurate. But this is just how long everything will be. Now, this one is super, super important. This is your chance to tell us how your concept aligns with one of the themes that you learned about in the opening event. This is part of our evaluation criteria, which we'll talk about after this. But we will be looking for whether or not your proposed concept strongly articulates messages that address one of the key themes for Pitch UA 4, as a reminder, media matters or visible transformations, clearly and effectively. This is where you're going to tell us. So this question is very important, and please do pay attention because it is going to be used to evaluate your initial concept. This is also super important. This is the secondary part of articulating messages that address one of the key themes. How does your concept produce social impact in relation to the applied for theme? We want to make sure that you have thought through how your project will achieve the goals of the themes discussed. This is also a number of other very important questions. This will help us understand if you have an understanding of how to reach your planned target audience. This is also part of the evaluation criteria to determine whether or not your concept will be shortlisted to proceed to pitching and doctoring. We want to see if your concept has a clear target audience and an understanding of how to reach this audience. So that is why the distribution platform is so important for us to understand if you understand how to appropriately reach your target audience, which we ask about here. So the distribution platform you mentioned in the previous questions, we should see a direct line between the target audience you want to reach. We also want to see your strategy and how to reach that proposed audience. So we want to make sure you can see how the audience can be reached using the distribution platforms that you propose. This is also very important part of the eligibility criteria. This is a key change from previous iterations of Pitch UA. Where are you? What stage of development is this in? Projects that are in production are not eligible, so please choose one of the three options below to proceed. So this is regarding budget. Although we're not requesting a full budget at this time, that will be requested for shortlisted applicants who go through the pitching and doctoring process. Please do try to be as specific as possible as it relates to your anticipating funding needs. As a reminder, each grant award will not exceed 4,005,000 Ukrainian hryvnia, and it's anticipated that grants will range between 1,335,000 to 4,005,000 Ukrainian hryvnia. Grant values must be based on the implementation plan. They may be slightly higher or slightly lower, but please do try to be as specific as possible in terms of how much funding you are looking from USAID, from TCA, if you've gotten any funding from anywhere else, and then the overall budget of the project. This is where we want to learn about you. This is the first stage of the past performance, both part of the eligibility criteria and the evaluation criteria. Tell us about your company. What do you do and how do you do it? This question is also very important. This one determines if you're eligible. As a reminder, when we discussed eligibility criteria, applicants must be able to demonstrate successful past performance in implementation of content creation. And this is one of the evaluation criteria. Does the applicant's initial online application highlight relevant past performance in the field of audiovisual content production? We want you to tell us if you have implemented similar projects to your proposed concept. If you're proposing something new, that's great, not a problem. Tell us how your work in the past, even if not directly related to your proposed concept, will help you achieve your planned concept. So feel free to be creative here. Tell us how you can do what you're proposing to do. This information will also help us understand your past performance. Even if your creator or scriptwriter is new to this process and new to what you're doing, what have they done in the past and how will they apply what they did to this particular concept? So the experience in previous projects is where you can discuss that a bit more. The next one, also very similar. This is same thing for producers. Even if your producer is new to what we're proposing here, what have they done in the past and how will they apply it to this particular concept that you are submitting for? This is also part of the eligibility criteria. Once again, applicants may only submit one application per theme per prime organization. So if you are applying with other projects, as a reminder, those other projects can't apply for the same theme. So once you have submitted your concept paper, completed the online application that we just reviewed together, we will review and evaluate your concept papers. They will first be reviewed by an administrative panel. We will vote yes or no on whether your concept paper meets the evaluation criteria. If they do so, if they meet the administrative criteria, then your application will proceed to the programmatic review. If you receive a majority number of yes votes for the programmatic review, then you will be invited to submit a full application and will be a shortlisted concept. If you receive a majority of no votes in either stage, administrative or programmatic, then we will let you know. Just as a reminder, this is all in the RFA, but just to remind you, we will be voting yes or no on the following questions. Did you submit all the required documents? These are listed both in the request for applications and mentioned previously. We want to make sure we have your registration documentation. We want to make sure that you disclose your partnerships and ownership structures and that you have signed your conflict of interest letter. Are you eligible? Once again, this is why we're asking for your registration documentation. Did you submit more than one application per theme? We've gone over this a lot, but only one application per theme is permitted for each applicant. Same thing with multiple organizations or affiliations. If you are partnering with an organization, that organization cannot submit an additional application for the same theme. Do you have any conflicts of interest? And does the initial concept adhere to the message and theme requirements that we discussed previously? If you meet those, if those are a majority of yeses, you'll proceed to programmatic review. These are the evaluation criteria. And I did highlight when we went through the concept paper, which questions would really be used for us to discuss these. So we want to see if your proposed concept strongly articulates a message that addresses one of the key themes, media matters or visible transformations, clearly and effectively. We want to see if your initial online application highlights your relevant past performance in the field of audiovisual content production. And we want to see a clear target audience and if you have an understanding of how to reach this audience. So if you proceed and receive a majority of yes votes, you will be invited to the pitching and doctoring phase, the full application phase, and considered shortlisted. I will briefly go over this. You will learn more once we get to this stage. But during this phase, shortlisted applicants will have an opportunity to work with international experts to further refine their submitted concepts. Applicants will first pitch their concepts to a panel of experts to explain them in detail. Following this, we will have a doctoring event. The doctoring event may be offline or online. It really depends on the COVID-19 situation. So we will let everyone know closer to the doctoring event itself and the pitching event itself, how it will take place. Doctoring here is a process by which these experts provide their comments and suggestions on the shortlisted content. So, maybe you had a question of, hey, I want to include this religious theme. I remember in Beth's presentation that I needed to discuss with an expert, how can we include this sensitively? That is a great place to discuss. So following this session, the pitching and doctoring, you will finalize your concepts, incorporate feedback from the experts, and then submit a final application online. This will be provided to the shortlisted applicants and will be available online. It will also be they will be reviewed after the pitching and doctoring sessions. We will require additional documentation. This is listed in an annex in the request for applications. We will go through this with the shortlisted applicants during that time, but if you're interested now, the list of documents is there. And as with phase one, full applications must meet the administrative criteria before proceeding to programmatic review. So to proceed to being reviewed programmatically, the grants team will review if you have submitted all the required documents and if it adheres to the message and theme requirements. So if there were questions in the initial concept, we want to see if they are addressed. If they receive a majority of yes votes, then you will proceed to programmatic review. In this stage, a group of TCA experts will review your full applications for the following criteria. And they will assign points based on how you respond to this criteria. The first is concept, message, design, and approach. We want to once again see how you clearly and effectively articulate how your messages align with the applied for theme of Pitch UA4. We also want to see if it offers anything new compared to content that is already produced in the creative market around similar concepts. We also want to ensure that gender and social inclusion is addressed and considered in the proposed materials. The materials, once again, listed in the RFA and will be discussed once we get to the full application phase, including scripts, episode scenarios, season descriptions, etc., must have direct linkages with the themes of Pitch UA. We want your concepts to be clear and the structure of the concept to be coherent and well thought out. The next thing our experts will be looking for is target audience and impact. We want to see how the proposed concept clearly articulates the target audience relevant to the socially important issue, and an understanding of how to reach that target audience. If you want to reach people who live where there's not a lot of internet, maybe YouTube wouldn't be the best distribution platform, for example. The next thing they'll be looking for is past performance and personnel experience. So we want to see if you have experience implementing similar activities, and if none, a description of how you plan to utilize previous unrelated experience to do this. We will also use this to examine your references and experience to ensure that you have the experience and experienced staff necessary to complete your proposed project. And finally, we want to see the extent to which you have effectively integrated the expert feedback from the pitching and doctoring stage described earlier. So once you are shortlisted and you have completed the pitching and doctoring sessions, submitted your full application and all the required documents, like before, the full applications and package of documents will be reviewed by a panel of TCA experts. If you move forward, you'll be invited to participate in the final pitching phase. During this phase, you will present your final pitches to a panel of experts and allow for you to demonstrate your ability to incorporate feedback and massage your plans even further for the final concept. As with phases 1 and 2, full applications must meet the administrative criteria before proceeding to programmatic review. This one's really simple. Did you submit all the required documents? Once again, there's a checklist in the RFA, but we will go through it once again with our finalists for any questions. If you've submitted all the documents, then you will proceed to programmatic review. The merit review criteria are on the screen. Once again, we will be looking at your concept, message, design, and approach, including attention to issues of gender and inclusion. We want to make sure that how you clearly and effectively developed your concept. How has it matured throughout the process? We also want to see those direct linkages once again to the theme that you applied for. And we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to discuss making sure that we have contingency plans should COVID-19 continue to be an issue once we get to implementation. Target audience and reach. Once again, we want to really make sure that you have thought through who you want this content to reach and how it's going to reach them. And finally, incorporation of expert input. How did you incorporate that expert feedback? What was modified, why, and how do you think your concept improved as a result of the feedback? So those are the phases. Those are the rules, the eligibility criteria, the budget. If you do have any additional questions, there are 2 email addresses on your screen that you can reach out to. If there's any questions about what was in this presentation, documents that are required to be submitted, about the themes themselves, please reach out to the TCA team at pitchua4@transformua.com. For all technical questions, and I realize now as I'm looking at this, it's Transform UA, not Transforum UA. So the correct email address is also in the RFA. If you have any technical questions, maybe you're having issues with the concept paper form online, please contact our media resources management colleagues at pitchua@mrm.ua. So this concludes the presentation about the request for applications. This will be available online and will also be translated. Once again, if you have any questions from what you've seen in this presentation, please reach out to pitchua4@transformua.com. And if you have any questions regarding technical problems or questions for the website, please reach out to pitchua@mrm.ua. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to reviewing your concepts, and we're looking forward for Pitchua 4. Thank you so much.